wasting much time, our next speaker is Nnamdi Okoro. He's a software developer and a Google Cloud Mina organizer, and he's interested in supporting startup and businesses to scale and grow. And it's also a community builder. So, Nnamdi Okoro, please, you have the floor. Hello.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, it's good to be on this platform, and I'm quite honored to be speaking at this point or this start of the year. And my name is Nnamdi Okoro, and I I do more of software, and I also do more of coaching and business development at the same time. But the main thing I always try to do is always remind people that they have something somebody else might need, and also they need something that somebody else has. Before I go into the topic for for discourse this evening, I think the first speaker has actually touched up on so many things I would have said in my presentation, and I'll only just make sure I put perspective to some of the instances he brought up, because I think for most of the scenarios he created, it was mostly about individuals, and since it's a methodology can um, that can either sway to the individual or to businesses or individuals who want to even start up a venture, it would be nice to actually understand what KPIs are, because nowadays we see people who just leave a lot of things to chance and expect wonders to happen because they feel they have goodwill and expect the whole world to also flow in that line. So before I start, I'll just like to put some words or give give an give a highlight to what KPIs are. So most times, it's like a buzzword in the business world or in people who believe in systems, where before they end their discussion, they tell you what's the KPI for this year, what's the KPI for this period of time, and like the first speaker mentioned, if you can't measure it, you can't track it. So to make sure that KPIs make a lot of sense to whatever you're trying to do, you also have to make sure that you set parameters that helps you check yourself and also check whether you're moving in the right direction. I always say, I always tell myself that everything in life is context, because the right thing might be the wrong thing if I put context to it. So if someone else is doing well as a front end developer, and for me, I am also doing well as a front end developer, but I'm not enjoying it because I know I can do more, it might be a wrong move, but a right direction for anybody who just wants to get into front end development. So the context is always personal, but you also have to make sure you give it like some sort of scope so that you don't just shoot blank shots and expect a lot of things to come out of it. So KPIs are just key performance indicators, and is on the basis of value, and also how most times businesses help check whether they are doing what they said they were going to do in the first place. Let's take for instance, um, I'm a startup that wants to change the way developers talk about technologies to newbies or people who just got into tech. Now, my objective might just be for those people who have gone through bad experiences starting up, I might just put all of them together and collate all their feedbacks or all the insights they might generate from the conversation I create with them. But what that is doing for me now is I'm able to speak to people with context that will make them understand that even if the language is bad, the main objective of my startup is that I want to change the mindset of people at entry points for any programming language or any kind of technology they might want to choose over a certain period of time, and also check whether there are changes in the way people now see all these things, and maybe even make people see the light in terms of how they see other technologies. So what are KPIs used for? They can be used like I said earlier, individuals can actually borrow into the idea or the concept of KPIs because it helps them understand how to evaluate what they've set out to do, and it keeps people focused. Because once you say, I have 3 points to achieve in the coming months, and you split it into 1 point a month, it gives you the ability to channel all your energy until you find a solution that matches what you've set for yourself. So in setting KPIs or understanding what KPIs are, you need to understand that you might have a lot, but like some speakers of some people of different school of thought will say, I think I listened to one speaker who said, which I believe most of us on this call can try, that you should list 5 or 10 items that you feel are very, very important to you at the moment. And at the end of that exercise, you should only focus on the first 3, because in that first 3 lies where your passion will lead you to. It might work for you, but based on research and insight that has been generated from the study carried out of this, once you highlight or put your energy to highlight what you feel you need or what you feel you can try out to make sure you develop something out of nothing, it helps you just focus and also get that fulfillment when you achieve the most little result you can even think of. So if I'm to just give an example of what KPIs do for individuals, it can help you just pursue a health related goal, like I want to accumulate 10,000 steps in a day, and you just look at how you can achieve that, because telling someone that you want to achieve 10,000 steps might look very, 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 very broad. But by the time you give yourself an example that I actually go down the stairs if I'm in the workplace more than 10 times, but I don't even keep count of it. So what I will do now is to download an app on my phone, which will track my movement and help me in attaining this goal. Before you know it, you check the first record and see that it is like I've accumulated 1,000 today. So the human mind helps you now say, if I can do 1,000 today, it means I have to repeat what I have done 10 times, and I'm sure I'll get up to 10,000 steps a day. For businesses, it is more about creating deliberate moves to make sure you achieve things in terms of, like, you can set a KPI for the HR department to make sure that every staff in the organization understand how to use Google Documents. And you're not just making it look as if they don't know how to use word processing softwares, but you're giving them this opportunity now to move all their conversations from local conversations on their systems to the cloud, where there will be more productivity, and there will also be ability for this for the company now to also cut costs in terms of time loss and so many other things that people were not taking note of in terms of how staff relate with themselves. So this just makes it like it just puts, like I said, reminds us of what the first speaker said, which is you have to be specific. You also have to also be quantitative about what you're asking or you're expecting from what you're doing. So just to for people who don't know what the acronym SMART means, it's just specific, measurable, time-bound, relevant, and attainable. Now, most times people always mention specific, measurable, and time-bound, but the two last ones, which is relevant and attainable, is where most times people just like think is going to happen because I've made it specific, measurable, and time-bound. But if something is not relevant and it's not going to add value to yourself or your self-development or where you're channeling this KPIs to, like one of my my colleagues or coaches will tell me, time is very expensive. Time is the most perishable item you can ever deal with, because 10 seconds ago can never be recovered. And for every moment you have moving forward, you have to cherish it as if it's the last you have on earth. So that means for everything you're going into, you're looking at the pros and cons. And if you see the pros, the cons are more than the pros. It is only the strong-willed that will just tell themselves the truth and say, no, I can't go into this because it's actually going to cost me time. Like some economists will say, what is the opportunity cost of the action you're taking? So in creating your KPIs, a CEO can just say, okay, we are going to increase our sales for the year. For people who are just like starting up, like for every company now, they are looking at their numbers from 2021 and also making plans for the first quarter of 2022 to make sure that they don't just live on assumptions. So let's say you're someone who is just starting up a company. Maybe your first KPI is just to get your first 10 users who ask you for your phone number. Another one can be, how many of two of this will be people who will transfer or maybe ask me to send a Bitcoin address to make sure that my startup has this ability to speak to investors and tell them that we are diversified in terms of exploring financial technology to carry out our business. So there are lots of instances, or there are lots of instances you can actually create in your own domain to make sure that you keep yourself in check, and you're accountable to every action you take in terms of growth, in terms of how and where you want to be, so that you don't just live on assumptions and believe that you're on the right track, or in most cases, you live in your head. Now, the question most persons might not really ask themselves at the beginning of this year is, what were the things I did not do very well in 2021? And how can I do better at them, or probably stop them entirely? I know there are parts that people will tell you that you should always keep a positive mindset about what happens to you, but negative feedbacks are feedbacks, and the context behind that feedback will help you grow as an individual and also help you be more open-minded towards life, because life has a lot that it will throw at you, but your ability to recover, adapt, is an inbuilt feature that God has given to every one of us. So the moment you give yourself that task to always review and watch out for the pitfalls and those very, very sad moments that you wish never happened, the faster and better you will be at in reviewing and exploring or exploiting your KPIs. So it is very important that as we create KPIs, we also have it at the back of our minds that we should also review them, because there are some people who believe that they don't want to listen to positive feedbacks because it leads to complacency, and in complacency lies mediocrity. So all this makes you just like very, very accountable, that you have to keep on pushing yourself and making sure that you are like you're improving, and everything that happens is just a stepping stone to how better you can be moving forward. It might be a coincidence that the two speakers, they don't believe in this whole tradition of doing you wake up 31st night and start screaming, my New Year's resolution is this, that, this. And for me, I believe every day is an opportunity to be better. And like the Andela Learning community will say, you own your learning. The moment you tell yourself that, you know that, I think my two favorite words, two favorite quotes in terms of community building and the ALC program that I was part of was, you own your learning, and every day is an opportunity to be world class. So in achieving these two like pointers, it lies on the basis of you taking your pen and paper and jotting down every little detail you want to do, and go back to that pen and paper every time you get lost. Because the moment you write it down, your brain has this unconscious reminder that it sends to you that, see, it seems there's something that you've forgotten that you've not done. And you always have that little whisper in your head that tells you, hey, go back to the basics. Once you always have that at the back of your mind, it is very, very important that you don't just assume that paper and pen is not really very vital. You can talk about notes. You can talk about note-taking applications that are available on Play Store, on the web app. But there are studies that shows that the more applications you install on your phone, the more you even tend to forget the relevant ones that you use, because a better one might show up and you feel that that one was the in thing, and you forget that the place you wrote your resolutions or what you want to achieve was on an old app. And like people will say, people like new things. If you get carried away with that, you forget where you started from. So a KPI report can just be a presentation that summarizes your current performance in comparison to your objectives. It's not a bad idea to look at yourself and say, I failed, and I have to pick up myself and keep moving and keep trying. Because the moment you feel you can't fail, I think you've stopped learning, and maybe you should start preparing your caskets to go into it so that people will know that you're off the radar. So KPIs, there's this argument that KPIs are the same thing as OKRs, and the same thing as measures, or the same thing as metrics. So some people always have this school of thought that there's a need for us to understand the difference between KPIs, metrics, measures, OKRs. So I'll just run through this, and hopefully I'll be rounding up very soon, so that there are people